Now that I know as a person who can see the system, what it is that you like, what it is that triggers you, what it is that grabs your attention when it comes to media, what it is that you like buying, I take that and then I give it to the politicians. Our attention is worth billions. And I think after you watch this video, you'll be able to see where your attention is being mined. And then next time you decide to pay your attention to something, I'm hoping that you will be making that choice a little bit more deliberately. So let me take you through it, right? And your attention in 2026 is one of the most valuable resources on this planet. If this was 1950, your attention is still very valuable, but it's not as valuable as it is right now, because think about the amount of information that we are bombarded with on a daily basis. It is insane. And in order for any kind of company to be successful, they need your attention. So I need you to please understand that your attention is not only precious, it is a finite resource. You don't have an infinite abundance of it, but it's also a non-renewable resource that you own. Nobody has given it to you. It is something that you self-generate. And I'm hoping that by the end of this video, you're going to be a little bit more stingy with what you give your attention to. But I could also make a video about how attention is not only valuable in the physical plane, but it's also valuable in the spiritual plane. Look at religious practices that have died down through the ages. They have died down. One of the reasons is because people have stopped giving them attention. Attention is a non-renewable resource that you can use to bargain with, not only in the physical plane, but also in the spiritual plane. Should I do a video about it? Maybe not. You let me know. But okay, for now, let's just talk about being on Earth. I want you to understand that your attention is on the ballpark of land. It's that valuable. It's as valuable as land. It's as valuable as oil. It is as valuable as energy. These industries that I'm going to mention later, they will not exist if you did not give them your attention. There are things that you're giving your conscious attention to, right? So when you're spending time with your girlfriend or your boyfriend, that is something that you're consciously giving your attention to. And then there are obviously things that you're unconsciously giving your attention to. Those are the habits, your reflexes, your emotions, your desires, and your triggers. Of course, companies want to be part of that conscious attention, but the real money, the real game is here. They want to be part of your unconscious attention. And there's a guy who is called B.F. Skinner. He was working in the 1950s and he ran an experiment which I think you've heard of before. It is called the rat experiment, where he put rats in a box and this box had levers, and some of the levers gave the rats food every time that they were pressed. And some of the rats, they were given food randomly and unpredictably, and some of the other rats, whenever they pressed that lever, they got the food every single time. So now the rats that were on the fixed lever system, where whenever they pressed the lever, they got food every single time, they ended up pressing the lever when they were hungry and ignored it when they were not. But then the rats who got the food, sometimes they pressed it very compulsively to the exclusion of almost everything else. So the unpredictability of the food being available led to kind of addictive behavior. Now, every social media platform, every tech platform that has been created is using B.F. Skinner's methodology, because if you do not know what you're going to get when you're scrolling, you are anticipating that something interesting, something funny, something that makes you feel seen, something that makes you feel a little bit intelligent, something that is a little bit outrageous is going to pop up. And sometimes it does. That kind of uncertainty creates a addictiveness that is more rewarding than anything that is consistent. The methodology that this psychologist came up with in the 1950s is running in full force in the 2020s. So this is why I am such a supporter of meditation and all of those practices that help you to pay attention to what you pay attention to, because it'll make you more aware of what triggers your reflexes. But anyway, this is not a spiritual video. So now in 2026, you need to understand that the most effective way that your attention is mined is by triggering your reflexes and your emotions. Outrage is something that drives way more attention than education or insight. Fear is something that drives more engagement than hope. Tribal conflict, a little bit of drama, is something that drives more engagement than something or content that is a little bit more analytical. This does not mean that human beings are stupid. It just means that our emotional activation system is faster. It processes information faster than our frontal lobe. If you feed us information that triggers this, it becomes more compelling than information that is a little bit more analytical. It's just how we're wired. It's like an algorithm that the human being has, you know? These people who create these platforms, especially these platforms, they understand this human being system. Therefore, they tailor make their algorithms so that we are on their algorithms for a long period of time. Over time, they make sure that systematically the content that is in front of us, it is not content that is the most accurate. It is usually content that is not the most useful. It's just content that is the most activating. That over time, the information that you consume, it is curated by an algorithm that is just trying to optimize your emotional reaction. Because if you've watched my previous video, I mentioned that people who are emotionally irregulated, for example, people who are frustrated, people who are angry, are very easy to control. It's very easy to control and point these people who are driven by their emotions towards certain belief systems and certain products. You're not even thinking about the fact that cognitively you're being compromised, that you're not being educated. You're not even thinking, hey, who built this system? Who's benefiting from me being triggered all the time? What am I not seeing? You're not even thinking about that. You're only thinking about what feels good and what is the most entertaining thing at the moment. And the more important questions feel less urgent because this is saturating your attention. I need you to remember that attention is finite. It has a bandwidth. You have 0 to 100 points of attention. And once that 100 is spent, you're done for the day. You're too tired. Like, you can't give anything any more attention, right? So you have to be careful. If you have 0 to 100 points of attention, what you give that 0 to 100 points of attention to, whether it is helping you ask questions that actually move the needle of your life forward. Okay, so now that we've covered the most obvious stuff, let's get into the meat of this conversation. So there's this guy, he's a French philosopher. He's called Guy Debord. And he wrote a book. So basically what this book says is that in the future, it's a fiction book. So he was like, oh, in the future, people are going to live a reality where they cannot distinguish between what is real and what is representation. There are people who are going to believe that representation is more real than what is real. Like, for example, when you watch a concert, right? A lot of people watch a concert through their phone, even though they're physically there. And this guy was predicting in the 1960s, he was just describing a reality where representation is more important than the real. And what he was alluding to is that representation is something that can influence what we give consent to, what we consider okay. The things where your attention is mined are social media and the way that they introduce the infinite scroll and the kind of variety which I've mentioned before. The media, which is kind of like social media's sister, how they curate the news cycle to activate your reflexes and your emotions so that you can pay more attention to those news cycles, the way that they use fear against you, the way that they use tribal conflict, gender conflict, etc. conflict, keep you glued onto their platforms. And also the education system, how it's using your attention to teach you how to be compliant. It's not really encouraging critical thinking, because when you think about traditional education systems, they feed you information and you don't really question where that information comes from. You just have to take that information and regurgitate it back to the system. Retail uses desire engineering. It uses your desire to be sexy, your desire to be powerful, your desire to feel important in order to make you buy their products. And it creates a manufactured need based on this desire to make you the perfect consumer. And it uses its cousin called media and tech and a little bit of education to curate how a successful life should look like, so that you can feed the system, so that you can present yourself in a certain way in society. After I wrote these notes down, I was like, yeah, but also religion also minds your attention. Religious systems are also systems that assist in curating the view of your world. And there are other things that you could be paying your attention to that are not in the system that could be beneficial for you. But I'm just going to mention today the ones that are manufactured for you to feed the system, this billion rand system that is being mined, sometimes without your consent. You know what is funny? Like, we understand that when you work a job and you put time into something, you're supposed to get paid for it. But this is a system where you give your time to these platforms. You give your time to the tech platform, the media platform, and all of these platforms. Okay, maybe not this one. But you give your time to these platforms, but you don't get paid for it. But the platforms that you're giving your time to, they get paid for the time that you're giving to those platforms. And How do they get paid? They use your data, and your data is converted into a product. This is where the meat of the conversation actually starts. Now that I know, as a person who can see the system, what it is that you like, what it is that triggers you, what it is that grabs your attention when it comes to media, what it is that you like buying, I take that and then I give it to the politicians, I give it to the shops and the retail guys, and I give it to the cultural curators of our time. So there's this guy called Edward Bernays. He was Sigmund Freud's nephew. He said that if you can capture the attention of a population and you know how to trigger them emotionally, you are able to point them towards specific decisions, towards specific beliefs, towards specific behaviors. And while you're pointing them to that, at every moment, that population is going to believe that they are choosing freely. And that is what manufactured consent is. So let's talk about political consent. You are now provided options that the system presents, not the options that would most fundamentally change your life or change your situation. You are provided the options that were given the most attention. This is not necessarily the best options for you, but hey, you gave them your attention. The options that will fundamentally change the system are usually options that do not trend. They usually are not options that get amplified. They usually don't appear on your feed with the same velocity as the ones that trigger your emotions. The people who represent the options that potentially could change your life in a positive way or change your circumstance politically in a positive way usually come from very, very boring people. And this reminds me of this thing called the Overton window. The Overton window is a phenomena where the range of ideas considered acceptable for mainstream discussion is not set by the population. It is set by whoever controls the attention infrastructure. Because at the end of the day, when you look at the news and the media, in order for them to stay in business, they need numbers. So the options that they're going to provide in front of you are options that are going to feed their business. And unfortunately, those options can have a real effect on your life and the state of your country and the state of your environment just by the things that we pay attention to. And then now, when we talk about commercial consent, because of this whole system, this ends up creating a thing where your desires are no longer your own because they've been studying your psychological profile. They've been studying your insecurities and the things that makes you anxious and the kinds of identities that you aspire to become. And they place these specific images in front of you. Okay, and then the other one is cultural consent. This one makes me sad a little bit because when you are consistently bombarded with specific images, values, stories, they have the power to influence your belief system. They have the power to influence your values. And when you influence your belief system, this reminds me of a video that I made previously where I was describing how people are controlled. When a person or an institution has the power to influence your belief system, they have the power to influence your thoughts and your words, thus your actions, thus your circumstances, and thus your life. And when you have a system that can influence cultural consent through the bombardment of images and videos, and they give you values and stories and frameworks using this attention infrastructure, it doesn't only just influence what you buy and who you vote for. It shapes what you believe is normal. It shapes what you believe is possible. It shapes what you believe about people who look like you. It shapes what you believe about people who don't look like you. It shapes what you believe about where you come from and what you are capable of. Whether you believe something is possible or not for you, it shapes that. This information that they're giving you, it shapes what you believe is possible and what is not possible for a person like you. And then this guy, Gramsci, he called this cultural hegemony. So cultural hegemony is the phenomena where the dominant group maintains its position by making its worldwide view feel like it's common sense. It's a manufactured worldwide view. And if you repeat the messaging long enough, the population starts to believe that it's normal and it's common sense, and they don't question why things are the way that they are. And this attention architecture is the most efficient delivery system for enforcing cultural hegemony because it doesn't require a lot of effort. Once it's activated, it doesn't require a lot of effort in order to be maintained. It just requires you to keep giving it attention. So I don't want you to watch this video and feel like, oh, I'm helpless. Oh, I don't have a choice. No, this is not about that, okay? This is a video that just makes you see the kind of system that exists so that you're no longer passive when you're participating in it. Having sovereignty over your attention is not about, oh, I need to use my phone less, which you should do, which I think is not a bad thing. But this whole thing is just about making you see how valuable your attention is. Your attention, or our attention collectively, is worth billions and billions and billions of rands, billions of dollars. It's like gold, it's like rubies. The attention that you have, it is one of the most coveted things in the universe. And I think it would be helpful if we made deliberate decisions about who gets access to it. Because you making the decision about who gets access to it eventually changes our society.